With the events of Krakoa and the fall of X over, it's time for the X-Men to be reborn from the ashes with a new beginning. Welcome to the Comicstorian Complete Story Series, where we take trade paperbacks and single issues and we break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then we read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. If you enjoy this story, be sure to support the industry and go check it out at your local comic shop. The new Uncanny X-Men began earlier this year, and after everything the mutants went through, many are trying to decide where their place in the world is. Today is Uncanny X-Men issues 1 and 2 by Gail Simone, which focuses on Rogue, Gambit, and Wolverine, what they're doing in the new status quo, as well as Dr. Ellis at Xavier's former school for gifted youngsters. I hope you enjoy. Westchester County. A car pulls through the gate of the former Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, passing by the graffiti that has been sprayed on the walls. The car pulls to a stop before the front entrance, and Dr. Ellis steps out, putting on her long white coat and greeting Captain Ezra, the officer in charge of the sentry team. Has anyone entered the structure? Dr. Ellis asks as she looks at the imposing building. Ezra shakes his head as he helps Dr. Ellis's assistant out of the back. Just some vandals. We were waiting for your arrival proper, the captain informs her. The three step inside the building, looking around at the stately manor that once housed Xavier's mutant school. It seems the criminals live better than real people, Dr. Ellis notes with disdain, ordering the captain to have his men strip away every bit of wood and brass that makes up the manor. They move through the school, peeking into rooms that have long been abandoned, with Dr. Ellis ordering Captain Ezra's soldiers to burn every scrap of personal item they can find and turn the former rooms into cells. They head down into the underground levels and step into the vast chamber of Cerebro. A way for mutants to find others like themselves. The arrogance of it. Building a monument to these people, to their entire cult, Ellis hisses. She turns to Ezra and orders him to burn it to the ground. Captain Ezra nods and puts a hand to his ear, getting a call on the radio. The first prisoner is here, Ezra tells the doctor, and she smiles. Outstanding. Let's not keep him waiting, she says softly. They turn and walk out of Cerebro, finding several soldiers guarding a kneeling prisoner. Hello, inmate. Welcome home. We're going to be doing some remodeling, she tells the mutant. Meanwhile, 40 miles outside Mexico City, Logan leans against his motorcycle near the Pyramid of the Sun. Logan! A voice calls out from high above. Logan looks up to see a smiling Rogue carrying Gambit as she floats to the ground. Hey, darling. Cajun. Logan grunts as he looks up. What brings y'all to the neighborhood? She asks. Logan motions over his shoulder at her. Figured I'd come and see what I can do about old Big Red here, he says. Gambit looks up at the massive creature that is curled up at the top of the pyramid. So, dragon, is it? He says softly as he looks at the creature. Logan nods, explaining that he doesn't want the dragon to destroy the city. Plus, he ain't exactly Lockheed cut this one, Rogue points out. Gambit nods as the three slowly walk up the steps. Do you ever stop to think, all the wonders we've seen? I am without words, he whispers. Rogue nods beside him, but it stops short. Did his eye just twitch? She asks. The eye suddenly snaps open, and the mighty dragon raises up off the floor, its massive, snake-like jaws opening wide. You insignificant gnats dare to awaken Sadarang, the god snake? I'll make a paste of you and cook your heads for supper, he bellows. All right, anyone got a plan? Rogue asks. But both Gambit and Logan look at her. Why are you asking us, Cher? You're the leader, Gambit shouts. Wait, who said I was the leader? She asks. But Sadarang rears back and fires a blast of fire at them all, scattering the heroes. Rogue leaps into the air and flies at the monster, but the heroes are bathed in green light as the god snake reveals that he possesses a second eye of Agamotto. Yes, I see who you are. I see you all. The thief, the hunter, and the scared little girl, he hisses. The words make Rogue stop short, and the great snake flicks her with his tail, knocking her away. Pathetic, Saturang hisses. Rogue flies through the air and slams into the steps of the pyramid, destroying them. The snake launches himself at her, but Rogue has regrouped and leaps into the air, punching the god hard enough to knock him away. Guess I'm up, Wolverine shouts as he pops his claws and leaps at the monster. He slashes at the eye of Agamotto, but his claws have no effect. The eye sees you, beast man, Saturang hissed as he smacks Logan away. Rogue and Gambit join back in the fight. Hold him still, Cher. Best you can, And don't you go getting burned none, Gambit shouts. Rogue flies through the air, landing by Logan once again. The two heroes lash out at the great snake, slashing both of his eyes and blinding him. Gambit smiles nearby as he deals a hand, the cards glowing. Steady on, he whispers to himself. He watches as Saturang launches back into the air. There you are, my friend, Gambit says and throws his cards. The cards flash for a moment, winning Gambit his prize. Saturang is still bellowing, preparing to make one final strike against Rogue and Logan. But Gambit steps forward. Hey, Lizard, maybe we make a trade, the thief calls. Saturang whirls on him, fire and smoke preparing to bellow from his throat. A trade? What manner of trade, gambler? You have nothing I want, thief, he snarls. But Gambit smiles and holds up the eye of Agamotto that he cut from the creature's hide. I do have one thing, friend. You so much as spark a match, and I blow it to pieces, yes? Gambit tells him as he holds up more charged cards. The smoke and fire disappears as Saturang lowers himself. I don't like you, he growls. Gambit shrugs. Fair, he admits. He offers Saturang the option to leave, to take up residence in Antarctica, and the great god ponders this for a moment. It would be nice to be an ice drake again, he rumbles softly. Saturang nods his massive head in agreement of the deal. That's the spirit, and you don't need no one for a year, and I give you back your eye. Is it done? Gambit asks. The dragon nods. It is done, he agrees. The dragon turns to leave, but Gambit stops him. One more thing, friend. You owe me a boon, agreed? Gambit asks. Saturang turns back. Yes, that is the currency of nobility, he admits. He turns his gaze back upon the heroes. I will share what I see with you all. There is something in your future. Something ruinous. Endling, the dragon says before leaping into the air and flying away. And the heroes watch as the great creature disappears into the distance. Finally, Logan turns to his friends. That was a stone-hard piece of work, Cajun. Only guy I know who beats a dragon and gets a favor out of him on the way out, Logan grunts. He turns back to his motorcycle, frowning to discover that it's been burnt to a crisp. With a sigh, he turns back to Rogue. Catch a hitch? He asks. The three of them begin to walk away, but Rogue's phone rumbles and she answers it. On the other end is Scott Summers, who has his hands full with his new team in Merle, Alaska. He asks Rogue if she, Gambit, and Logan can meet up with Kurt to take care of something. Rogue nods as Scott gives her the details, and she turns back to her friends. We've got work to do, boys. We ain't gonna like it much, she admits. Meanwhile, in Central Oregon, a young woman is running through the trees, chased by two figures in hoods. Leave me alone! Go away! She shouts into the darkness of the woods, but a voice calls out to her.
Settle down, little girl. No need for discomfort. No need at all,
the voice calls. The hooded figures leap through the brush, zapping the young woman and knocking her to the ground. But she kicks out at them with powerful hind legs that resemble a deer. She is unable to control her features, and it is revealed that antlers grow from her head. Her body now takes on a fawn-like appearance.
Oh dear, you are a bit hideous to look at, aren't you?
The voice calls. Tears begin to fall from the girl's eyes as she stares into the shadows.
Just let me go. I'm not an ex-anything. I never chose sides. I didn't go to any island. I just want to live.
The fawn cries, but great clawed hands come out of the shadows and reach for her.
Yes, yes, but I'm afraid your blood betrayed you, child. Now, come to mommy, the voice hisses.
The next day, Rogue, Gambit, and Logan arrive at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, where Kurt Wagner waits for them. Nightcrawler greets his friends and leads them through the hospital, explaining that they are a child's wish. Harvey X, all he wants is to be one of us, but he's ill, Kurt explains to them. They walk into Harvey's room, finding it adorned with X-Men memorabilia.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, you came! The X-Men came! You guys are my favorites!
Harvey shouts with joy. Gambit crosses the room with a big smile. Hey, mon ami, we heard you've been flirting too much with the nurses. They starting to complain, he says. Logan smiles at the boy, but then glances back at the doctor. He can sense something. Best call his parents, Doc, and hurry, he whispers. Rogue sits on the bed as Harvey continues to fanboy. He reaches out for her hand and touches it for a moment, and Rogue notices how cold his hands are. Suddenly, his head snaps back and his eyes roll into the back of his head. They're coming. You have to help them. One of them is the Endling, Harvey suddenly says, before his body launches into a seizure. The doctors rush past the heroes, moving to try and save the young boy, pushing the mutants out the door. It doesn't take long, and the mutants wait for the word, but Harvey couldn't be saved. Rogue and Gambit greet the parents when they arrive, trying to help them through the pain, with Kurt telling the others that he would stay with the parents to try and help them work through their grief. Afterwards, Rogue, Gambit, and Logan walk out of the hospital. Rogue sighs as she glances at her husband. Remy, I need somewhere so deep that grief can't find me, okay? She whispers. Remy nods, knowing just the place for them. He takes them to Louisiana, to an old friend who offers them a place to stay. They pull up in Logan's Jeep, and Remy jumps out to greet his friends. I brought a couple of stowaways, Marcus, Remy says as he hugs the man. Marcus smiles at them. All orphans are welcome here, son. You all look a little sapped. Go and rest by the fire pit. I'll bring you something special, he says. The three sit by the fire, drinking the beers that Marcus had provided. Rogue stares into the flames, thinking about how everything seems wrong these days. We almost had Xavier's dream. Now, it's just emptiness. Do we even try to carry on? She asks, and Remy puts a hand on her shoulder. Who would even lead us? She whispers, but he smiles at her. Like I said in Mexico, Cher, who else would we follow? He tells her. She suggests that they head up to Scott's team in Alaska, but Logan shakes his head and takes a long sip of his beer. Yeah, no. Imagine a community run by Scott Summers. He's everywhere you look, every step you take, Logan grunts. Rogue looks at her friends, admitting that she's called others, but no one is interested. Even Kitty doesn't want anything to do with the X-Men anymore. Gambit puts his arms around her, suggesting that they just live for a while. Not fight, but in peace. Logan nods. Hate to admit it, but the Cajun's right, darling. Besides, we ain't the ones to fill Chuck's chair, Logan tells her, But Rogue shakes her head, telling them that she doesn't want her life to go back to having no purpose. "I'll do this alone, if need be," she whispers. But Logan holds up a hand. "Hush," he whispers. He stands. His beard falls to the ground as he pops his claws. The bushes part nearby, and several young people step out, fear in their eyes. Also, there's a horse. "Please help. She's coming for us. Help us," one of them asks softly. Sometime in the past, Charles Xavier was at university, sitting on a bench in the snow and reading, when a voice called out to him. "Hello, sailor. I've gone and lost my what's-it. Mind giving a helpless yank a boost?" the beautiful blonde woman asks. Charles looks up at her, and his eyes widen as he begins to stammer over his words, explaining that he's actually from the States. She smiles at him. "Never mind, sweet boy. Just help me," she tells him. Charles agrees and helps the woman retrieve her frisbee from the tree he is sitting under. "My name's Sarah, by the way," she calls as she climbs up him. "Oh, yes, hello, I'm Charles," he says, struggling to lift her. She climbs back down and smiles wider, admitting that she knows who he is, explaining that some people say that he's a pagan, a witch boy. She pats some snow off of his shoulder. "You're quite well put together for a bookworm, Charles," she tells him. Finally, she turns away, but glances back over her shoulder. "It's a local custom to buy a girl a hot cuppa once she's climbed up one side of you and down the other. Are you coming?" Sarah asks him, motioning for him to follow her. Charles smiles and walks away with the beautiful woman. Now, Rogue, Gambit, and Logan ready themselves as the youths step from the trees. "Please, we need help," one of them says. But Logan shakes his head and steps forward to the biggest and strongest of the group. "Whoever you are, we ain't accepting social calls at the moment," he growls. The big guy steps back an inch. "My dude, don't touch me. Seriously," the kid tells Logan. But suddenly, there is a blast of green energy that hits the teen in the chest and launches him back. Everyone looks up in shock at Gambit, who is holding the eye of Agamotto. "I'm gonna guess the safety was off on this thing," he whispers. Logan turns back to the kid, but he is already on his feet. "You wanna fight, Canuck? Fight like a man," the kid shouts as he punches Logan hard in the face. Rogue leaps into the air, shouting for everyone to calm down, but a young woman jumps on the back of the horse. "You see it, Ember? They're mean, like Mother said. Goblins," the woman whispers to the creature, and suddenly they seem to light up with a magical golden fire. "Pegasus Knight!" the woman shouts as she flies into the air. Gambit draws a few cards, lighting them up as he stands before another of the young women. "Kid, I don't want to throw these cards, all right?" he calls, but she shakes her head and taps a button on her wristwatch. Everything seems to slow down around them, and the girl leaps at Gambit, kicking him in the face. Meanwhile, Logan is struggling to his feet, but the final teen steps up behind him. Darkness seems to press in around them as his eyes glow red. "Hello, Mr. Logan. I am having a cyanide dream." "Oh, Mr. Logan, you have killed such a great lot of people. They missed you so," the boy whispers. Meanwhile, at the new Grey Malkin prison built on the grounds of the former Xavier School, Dr. Ellis steps into the cell of a red-headed mutant. She looks down at the mutant and smiles. "Now, Teresa, you know Charles Xavier is dead, correct?" Dr. Ellis asks. But Teresa shakes her head. "I don't believe you. Go to hell," she snaps. But Dr. Ellis smiles. "Have you felt his presence in your mind since Krakoa? I don't think you have. That dream is gone. Like ice in the desert," she says. She leans down to Teresa, pushing her face close. "We're going to fix everything, Teresa. How would you like to be one of my trustees?" Ellis asks softly. Back in the woods, the X-Men have regrouped. Rogue dips low and knocks the blonde known as Calico from her horse. Below her, the teen known as Ransom tries to catch her. "Hey kid," Logan calls. Ransom looks up sharply and Logan punches him hard in the face. "You're it!" Logan snaps. Ransom looks up in shock to find that Logan has the goth kid in a headlock. "I'd stay down," Logan growls at him. Nearby, the watch of the one known as Jitter suddenly beeps and her powers stop, allowing Remy to grab and trip her to the ground. The teen mutants all glare at them. "If you're not gonna help us, leave us alone," Ransom snaps. But a voice calls out to all of them. "How about this? Everyone leave everyone alone," Jubilee shouts, filling the darkness with her light-based powers and bringing the entire fight to an end. She sighs as her light show dies out. "Geez, how did I end up the adult in this situation?" she asks. Rogue cheers and rushes forward, picking up her friend in a big hug. With the fight ended, Rogue orders the teens to sit by the fire while the adults talk. "Can I have one of those beers?" Ransom asks. But Rogue shakes her head. Shortly, the former X-Men are all talking. "I'm telling you, they don't smell right. It's like decay," Logan growls. They head back over to the group of kids, asking them who they are and why they're here. The teens introduce themselves, and it is Jitter that steps forward. "A voice called us here, said that you could save us," she explains. Logan looks to the one called Death Dream. "Why do you stink of death, little guy?" Logan asks in Japanese. Death Dream nods. "I could ask you the same question," he answers. Jitter looks at them, pleading. "Look, we know you're all hurting. We need help. We're just kids. Please," she says. Rogue has stepped away after Jubilee explains what she saw when she did recon at the new Grey Malkin prison. Rogue picks up her phone and calls Scott, asking what they should do and if they should head there and look for Xavier. "That's a negative, Rogue. The strategy is to stay away from Grey Malkin prison for now. Jubilee's intel just confirmed that we need more data," he tells her. Rogue tries to argue, but Scott is firm. "Stand down, Rogue. Please, trust me," he tells her. Rogue isn't happy and hangs up. She turns back to her friends. "I need to call Kurt. We're gonna need him," she says. Jubilee looks at her. "Why?" she asks. A look of determination sets on Rogue's face. "Because it turns out we're the X-Men now," Rogue says. Back at the fire, Logan looks to the frightened teens. "Last question. Who's hunting you all?" he asks. Jitter looks at him in surprise. "How can you not know? It's the hag. I don't even think she's human. She's hunting us. She's hunting all of us. She's hunting us for bounty," Jitter whispers. Back at the prison, Captain Ezra enters the command center. "Warden, she's here. She's brought another one," Ezra tells Dr. Ellis. The doctor turns to the door. "Very well," she says. The door slides open, revealing the horrifying woman as she drops the fawn mutant to the floor.
"I've brought you a prezi for your collection, Warden. Tasty and fresh,"
she whispers. Dr. Ellis nods. Thank you for this gift, Sarah," she says softly. And so begins the new Uncanny X-Men at Marvel and here on the channel. What did you guys think of the start to the new Uncanny X-Men line? I thought it was a very strong start and am excited to cover the rest of it here on the channel. But let me know your thoughts down below, like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Benny.